LG Cinema 3D Super Tournament.
Bounce, bounce, come on baby. Bounce, bounce, come on baby. I don't care about a thing as long as I get to you. 'Cause I like your back, that smacking that is.
Alright guys, welcome back to the GSL Super Tournament. We're in the round of 16 now. This is day one of the round of 16. And first up, we've got SlayerSGanZI versus MMA. Now, that is an epic match to start off. And I'm not going to do any fancy intros. I'm going to talk about myself. I'm not going to talk about Rob and Clark, my two DT casting, DTs just hanging out next to me. I'm not going to talk about that because today I want to talk about MMA, who, for those of you guys who don't know, who didn't watch MLG Columbus, you should probably cover your ears now. Just cover them. Don't listen to this. But MMA, obviously, for those of you who did watch, those of you who follow esports, those of you who like StarCraft, know MMA took out the event, won MLG Columbus. So he is a top player. He basically just crushed the foreign scene. Now he's back in Korea. He got back here. I think he got back last night. So, he's a little jet lagged, most likely. He hasn't had a lot of time to practice. He's been traveling. But even so, he is back, and he's ready to crush the Korean scene as well. But his opponent is SlayerSGanZI, someone who took out MVP, definitely an up-and-coming player, someone who I didn't think was that great in TVT. I didn't think his skills were enough to take out MVP, but he took out MVP, and he looked pretty strong when he was doing it. So this is going to be a pretty close match. I have to say, I'm myself a little confused. Someone's like asking me beforehand, who do you think's going to win? I'm like, I don't know, but I think SlayerSGanZI will take it, given that he doesn't have any jet lag, and he has been practicing. He's had a ton of days of practice. He's not flying all over the world, doing big lands and stuff. So I think he's had a lot more time to prepare. Now remember, these guys are teammates as well, so that's another big story in all of this. They're teammates. We've had a lot of team kills here at the GSL Super Tournament, but this is the round of 16, so both players got to be knowing that no matter what, their team's going to look good. But here's our round of 16 matches. First, we're going to have today, of course, SlayerSGanZI versus SlayerSMMA, SlayerSRyoung versus OGS Juke2, The Best Foyu versus SlayerSmen, TSL Revival versus Marine King Prime. Of course, Marine King playing today as well. I didn't mention him there in my brief little intro, but he's obviously a champion himself. Now, Lenok Foyu versus SlayerSAlicia will be tomorrow, as well as Maka Prime versus Polt Prime Wii, Zenix Line versus OGS Nada, and OGS Top versus I Am Nesty. That is the full round of 16. Remember, Tosis will most likely be here casting that tomorrow. I'm pretty sure they are. They're scheduled to be. So, that's most likely what's going to be happening. So I know a lot of you guys have been excited to see Tosis back. Well, they're getting back today, and they should be here tomorrow to cast those games for you guys. So look forward to those. It's going to be some awesome games. Alicia is like the chosen one for Protoss right now. The last Protoss left here in the round of 16. Can he pull off a miracle and bring the Protoss race through to the end, or will he fall early on? So anything about. Now, I did want to mention, for those of you guys who didn't watch yesterday, or maybe watched the VODs but skipped through all the boring talking part, if you go to m.gomtv.net, you can check out the mobile site on your mobile phone. If you've got a smartphone, you can watch the VODs there, you can look at the schedule there. And I'm just telling you guys, it's something that producers aren't like, hey, Wolf, tell them about the mobile site. No, I just want to tell you guys because it's so awesome. I looked it up yesterday. I tried it on different mobile phones. It's like so cool. It's so nice. It's such a good mobile site. Check the schedules there really easily. Get little pictures of the players. You can even look up records and stuff like that. But also you can watch the VODs like right on your mobile phone. You can do it on the subway. Do it wherever you have internet connection on your phone. Just right there. You don't need your laptop. You can do it on your iPad as well. So definitely recommend checking that out if you have a smartphone. If you don't have a smartphone, tell your friends who have smartphones who like StarCraft because it's awesome. I ran around the studio yesterday. I was telling everyone, I'm like, you have an iPhone. I noticed that. You should go to m.gomtv.net because it's a pretty awesome site. That's how I feel about it anyways. So, like I said, we're going to have MMA versus SlayerSGanZI up here first. Two Slayers players. Which Slayers player will slay the other Slayers player? We're going to find out. And I have to say, overall, based on what I've said earlier, MMA, he did extremely well. He's shown some great results, but I thought that SlayerSGanZI was a better player overall. But after MLG, I'm not so sure. But on the other hand, MLG, of course, is pretty taxing, so he may be a little bit tired. He hasn't been able to practice as much, especially, SlayerSGanZI's been practicing only TVT. So we're going to take a look at today's matches. Of course, I talked about the round of 16 earlier, but here's today's matches again. Like I said, SlayerSGanZI versus MMA, SlayerSRyoung versus Juke2, The Best Foyu versus SlayerSmen, TSL Revival versus Marine King The best Foyu versus Slayer's Men is going to be an interesting match as well. It's kind of the revenge match. The best said in interviews that he wants to take Slayer's Men out because Slayer's Men knocked him out of Code A. He's now in Code B. So he wants to get revenge. He wants to take on Slayer's Men. So there's a little bit of story there in that set. So you guys have seen today's matches twice. And I've talked about all the matches for today in some length. I think Marine King is probably the favorite to advance as well. Just want to talk about him a little bit. I think he actually may be the one to make it all the way to the end. Now, I wanted to mention GOM TV on Twitter. You should check them out. Go follow them. They list every sort of news event, like new casters, tournaments, stuff like that, all the time there on their Twitter. You'll hear it from them first before I tell you about it. So definitely follow them on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, FXOWolf. But here's SlayerSGanZI. Look at his results. He's 62nd in the GSL ranking, so that's not that impressive, but he's been doing a lot better here recently. Now, he actually fell out of Code A, losing in the round of 32, but he took out MVP, so it's like, you know, he hasn't done that well in Code A, but he's done well in the Team League, and he also took out MVP, so those are some really, really impressive results to just mention. I mean, look at him there. There's a shot of him now. You can see him scratch his face there a little bit, but GanZI, and by the way, a lot of people on my Twitter was saying, why do you say GanZI instead of GanZI? Well, GanZI is how it's spelled in English, but in Korean there's actually no Z sound, so the closest thing they have is a G, like that G type of character, so that's why you say GanZI instead of GanZI. Now here's Slayer's MMA. He's ranked 57th, pretty close. Now, of course, to make it through the round 64, took out Fox Lin 2-1. That was kind of a narrow edge, and he also narrowly edged out Supernova, so his TBT not as impressive as some other Terrans, because Supernova and Lin are both two players who kind of don't really have the best TBT in the world, but they're pretty good, so you can't knock him for just saying, oh, well, you know, he barely edged over those guys. He's definitely improved a lot, and I think riding off of MLG, being excited, being hyped up on that, may come to help him here, help his confidence, but on the other hand, it may come to hurt him as well, so we'll just have to wait and see. I've talked so much about MLG affecting his performance here today, but it really does. It absolutely does. So, as you can see, the win rates here, GanZI not as high of a win rate versus Terran in recent matches. He's at 40%. Overall, though, he's actually at 53%, so a little bit better. You know, not all of his matches are televised, and of course, there are longer matches there that just aren't shown. And of course, MMA doing a little bit better down there. He's got 66.7% win rate versus Terran. Shot of our studio there, the GSL logo. Now, we're going to take a look at our maps. Take a look at that Pocari Sweat, by the way. If you come to Korea, you should try Pocari Sweat. I was a little nervous to try it because people were like, oh, yeah, it's kind of weird. You know, it's a little bit different. It's not what you're expecting, but it was really good. Neither of these players eliminated any maps. That's notable. Set 1 will be on, well, actually it says Metalopolis, but it's actually going to be on Terminus Re. I believe Set 2 and 3 are correct. Yeah, they will be on Crevasse and Dual Sight. So Set 1 will be on Terminus Re. We actually had the same confusion once before where the map said Metalopolis, but it was actually going to be on Terminus. It is really going to be on Terminus. I'm not lying to you guys. I wouldn't lie to you guys, I promise. Alright, so two Slayers players. You can see their blue jackets. Their headsets are lighting up. The countdown has started. Actually, the map's loading. Who's going to take game 1? Which Slayers player will advance to the round of 8? GanZI versus MMA. Let's find out here on Terminus Re.
SlayerSGanZI versus Slayers MMA.
All right. Over here at the right side of the map, a player on the team Slayers. His name is... He took out MVP, and he is...
SlayerSGanZI.
SlayerSGanZI. There he is now. Oh, he raised his eyebrows at the camera. There's a Boxer's girlfriend. Slayers MMA versus SlayerSGanZI. Some Korean thunder there as well. Now, GanZi's opponent and teammate who recently took out MLG Columbus, a great Terran player in the yellow here at the top of the map is...
Slayers MMA.
He's going to show us some mixed martial arts here at the GSL Super Tournament. The round of 16. Now, are these players going to go for an early gas? Looks like MMA is planned to not, and actually GanZI as well. Both of them throwing down their barracks first. which has started to almost become the abnormal thing to do in this matchup. You see gas first so often in TBT now, because those harassment-oriented builds are so good if you know how to control them properly, and they basically stop fast expands, because even if your opponent fast expands, he's got 2 command centers making SCVs out of 2 command centers. You coming in with your harassment, if you're using Blue Flame Hellions, you just kill so many SCVs that you get ahead and expand. If you go for Banshee, sometimes you can just kill so many Marines that you can just kill them with a timing attack. So a lot of players kind of wanting to go with that style, getting that faster gas, getting that faster Viking out, because the Vikings kind of help shut down the drop ships for the Hellions. Of course, they shut down Banshees as well. Banshees normally the follow-up for Hellions. But it looks like both of these guys are going to be going for fast expands. Now remember, they're teammates, so part of that does come into play here. They know each other's styles, and it looks like they both just want to try to play out a fast expand type of style and play into a later game. In fact, GanZI is going to go for a super fast expand. It looks like he's even going to skip his first Marine. No, he's not. He skipped it for a while to get that command center out. Okay, yeah, so he's... I thought he didn't like the command center yet because I didn't have my production tab open. He's going to bravely not only skip his first Marine, but make his command center at the low ground. You see that MMA is doing the same thing. So both of these players going for fast expands at their naturals. And GanZI a little bit ahead because he did skip that first Marine. Of course, both players skipping a supply depot as well to get that gas up ASAP. So that's how you do it. For those of you guys who don't know how to fast expand with the Terran, if you go for a gasless expand after you get the gas up, I mean, in some cases, like in TVP, you don't always do this, but in most cases, after you start the command center gets to be about 30 to 50% done. You drop both of your gases immediately and start mining gas out of them so you can get that stim upgrade. And in TVT, for example, you might want to get your factory up ASAP, not even necessarily stim. It all depends on what kind of style you're going for, but got to get those gases up ASAP. It's something I've noticed a lot of newer players when I coach some people or watch my friends play. They're like, oh, I heard about, I mean, they're not bad, but they're like, I heard about this fast expand build. I've never really tried it. And then suddenly they're like making only barracks and they have too many Marines and they can't tech because they got their gases too late. You get those gases really quickly afterwards. Alright, the factories have started for both players. This time, GanZI a little bit behind with his factory. This is a mirror match for those of you guys who haven't picked up on that yet, so we'll be talking about a lot of the same things. Both these players almost doing the exact same thing. As you can see, both players have 4 Marines out in the middle of the map, both of them with 1 SCV as well. It's the epitome of a mirror match. But something else a little bit different. MMA has made 2 barracks, whereas GanZI is stuck with just the 1. A little bit interesting. That means that MMA is going to have more Marines out. He's also going to be able to buffer his siege tanks a little bit easier if he wants to. Marines are not that significant at this. Once you pass the very early game, they become a little insignificant because if your opponent scouts you have more Marines than him, you can do as GanZI is doing and throw down a bunker just to be safe. So that's exactly what you can do. SCV counts for you guys dead even at 26. I take it back, it's 25 to 26. MMA in the lead. So MMA actually going to add a tech lab on one of his barracks. Most likely wants to get stim ASAP. The starport is finishing up here for MMA. He's going to do a little switch. GanZI is actually going to be going for pre-igniter Hellions though, so it's going to be a little difference in the build here. MMA going for Banshees, whereas GanZI is going to try to use that starport to drop pre-igniter Hellions. He may try to drop Marines as well. So another strategy you see commonly is you use the Blue Flame Hellions at the front. If your opponent doesn't make a bunker, you can just run into the natural as Hellions, kill as many SCVs as you want, distract your opponent, and then drop Marines into the main. That's another strategy you see very, very commonly in TVT. It looks like we are going to see MMA commit to Cloak here. And GanZI, not really aware of it as the observer just showed there. Wants to find out here pretty soon what his opponent's up to. He may scan, or he may just try to play it safe. Now remember, he is making that first dropship. Now he may want to follow this up with a Viking just to be safe. And indeed, that is exactly what he's going to do. You'll see it on the production tab here in a second. As soon as GanZI's supply depot finishes, he will supply block there a little bit. And it looks like it is going to be just as I said. GanZI going to drop Marines and use the Hellions at the front. There are some Marines here back to defend, but with 1 medevac and an extra Marine, should be able to clean that up pretty nicely. But if he knows about it, as he does now, he should be able to block with the Marines. Now MMA, or GanZI rather, going to have to be very careful.